La review of books del New York Times pubblicò una prima pagina in cui dicevano: benvenuti nella vostra obsolescenza. Viviamo in tempi interessanti in cui probabilmente, non lo sappiamo ancora, le macchine potrebbero prendere il controllo e l'artificial intelligence potrebbe sostituire forse gli umani in diverse attività del reale. Non lo sappiamo ancora, siamo appunto in una fase di passaggio e anche i due palchi del NextFest, abbiamo uno stage human in cui ci troviamo noi e uno stage cyborg dall'altra parte. È un periodo difficile da analizzare, è un periodo in evoluzione, ma l'artificial intelligence è un tema gigantesco del nostro contemporaneo. A parlarne qui oggi abbiamo uno dei massimi esperti mondiali, è autore di un libro che è stato tradotto in italiano da Luis e si intitola Le persone non servono, un titolo che potrebbe spaventarvi, ma insieme al nostro ospite analizzeremo il fenomeno della artificial intelligence sia nei lati positivi sia nei suoi lati più distopici. È veramente un onore e un piacere avere qui oggi al NextFest Jerry Kaplan. Parlerà in inglese, vi ricordo che con l'applicazione del NextFest potete avere la traduzione simultanea sul vostro smartphone. Jerry Kaplan è uno scienziato, è una delle figure di riferimento della Silicon Valley e insegna a Stanford, una delle più importanti università al mondo, e è qui oggi con noi. Jerry, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hey, buongiorno Milano. That's everything I know in Italian, so I apologize, the rest will be in English. This is my book in Italian, or so they tell me, but I can't read it, so I don't know for sure. Okay, today I want to talk about artificial intelligence, what it is, and just as important, what it's not. Now, you've probably heard a lot about the benefits of this new technology, but today I'm going to bum you out, and we're going to talk about a lot of the risks to our social and our economic well-being. Now, much of what I'm going to talk about is drawn from my book, so if you want to get really depressed, you're welcome to read my book. Now, when most people think about artificial intelligence, they worry that we're building increasingly intelligent machines that will ultimately exceed human capabilities, steal our jobs, possibly even escape human control, and take over the world. You know, that's because of what they see in the movies. By the way, that's me before I put my skin on. Now, this is very exciting and scary, but it's not the best way to think about artificial intelligence. You know, for one thing, what you see in the movies is far beyond the current state of the art. You might find it comforting to learn just how primitive our best human-like robots are today. This was a robot from a recent competition of some of the best robotics people in the world competing for a prize in the United States. And here's what the real world is like. As a friend of mine once said, if you're worried about the Terminator, just keep your door closed. Now, as you can see, today's robots are slow and clumsy, but you might wonder about what will happen if they improve. Will they become more like the Terminator in the movies? Are they going to rise up against us? Are they going to take over the world? Well, the answer is no, which I hope means the same in Italian. Because robots don't have independent goals and desires. You know, a robot that's designed like this one to wash and fold laundry, it may be very, very sophisticated. It might learn not to put the laundry away while you're sleeping, or like just how you like your shirts folded. But it isn't going to wake up one day and say, oh my God, what a fool I've been. I really want to sing opera at Teatro alla Scala. So, what really is artificial intelligence? A common definition of the field is the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and translation between languages. But this definition isn't very good. For one thing, we often use computers to do things that way faster and better than humans can do. And we also use them for tasks that people really can't do at all. You know, we usually want to build systems that far outperform humans, not just duplicate the things that humans can do. But there's nothing new about that. Machines already move our freight. They score our tests. They handle our billing. They pick crops. They trade stocks. They store and retrieve our documents, and they manufacture just about everything. Now, all of those are tasks that at one time in the past required human expertise and judgment. Certainly, it also included intelligence. Yet today, we take all of these machines in stride. And we do that, we use them because they do the jobs better than people do, and they reduce costs, and they make us wealthier as a result. So, rather than think of artificial intelligence as an attempt to recreate human intelligence in a machine, the whole field is better understood as an advanced form of computerization and of automation. But what's different about artificial intelligence from previous waves of automation? What sorts of new devices and applications does artificial intelligence make possible? Now, I'll focus today on the most visible and physical uses of artificial intelligence. Mainly, what it's going to do is it's going to make possible a new generation of robots that can work safely in human spaces, so you will be interacting with them. You know, with a few exceptions, today's robots are confined to factories, and there they perform simple, repetitive tasks. And the reason for this is very simple. Our machines can't sense their environment, and they can't adapt to changes in that environment. So they can only work in those very carefully controlled settings. But using AI, we can give our robots the equivalent of eyes and ears. And they can sense and they can interact with their environment, just the way that people do or animals do. So these new flexible robots are going to be able to work in real-world environments alongside all of us because they can adapt to what is happening around them. Now, self-driving cars are one of the first examples of these new flexible robots. But self-driving cars are only one example. Now, in this video, you can see the human's view at the left, and you can see the computer's view, the car's view of what it's identifying as people and objects on the right. Now, notice that after the human gets out, it waits for people to cross the street, and then the car goes ahead and parks itself. If only it could pay my parking fines. Now, another example. This is another favorite of mine. I love this. This is already deployed in garden plant nurseries in the United States. Now, here you can see small robots, and they're spacing out potted plants. And the plants, as they grow, they need more room. And they pick them up and they move them to new locations where they can have more space. So soon, we're going to see flexible robots like this everywhere, out here in the park cleaning up, for example. They're going to be painting walls. They'll be cooking meals. They'll be serving food. They'll be clearing dirty dishes. They'll be making beds. They'll be washing laundry. They'll be walking dogs. They'll be laying pipes. They'll be cleaning sidewalks. They'll be fetching tools. And they'll be carrying our bags. And that's just to name a few of the examples of what we're going to see. Now, these advances, all of those, may sound like they're very different, But in fact, they're not. They're powered by the same fundamental technology. And they're made possible by recent innovations in a field called machine learning. How many of you have heard of machine learning? Perfect. That also means that you speak English. Now, machine learning is an assortment of tools for finding subtle patterns in very, very large collections of data. And that data can take many different forms. And that's why the applications that may seem very different are actually very, very similar. In the case of flexible robots, the data comes from sensors. And those sensors are like cameras and radar and things like that you just saw. And new AI programs can recognize objects and can recognize people. So for instance, a machine could be sent to go fetch a tool that you want. It might be a hammer or a drill. Or it could paint a wall by itself because it can see where the wall is. Now, the new technology is wonderful, but artificial intelligence is going to pose some very serious new challenges for society. Now, the first of these is its impact on labor markets. And the second is on the distribution of wealth. And I'd like to start with the effects on labor to talk about this. I'm often asked how artificial intelligence will affect jobs. Now, if you think about artificial intelligence as an advance in automation, certainly one of its biggest impacts is going to be on the way we work. Are we all going to be out of work, out of a job? What sort of jobs are going to be at risk? And which of the skills that we have are going to be more valuable in the future? Well, here's my answer. If your job involves a well-defined set of tasks with a clear and objective goal, then indeed your employment may be at risk. And that's because these are the sort of tasks that tomorrow's AI-based machines are going to be very good at. Such jobs involve what's called hand-eye coordination, such as laying bricks or driving a truck, like you saw. But many white-collar jobs also have these characteristics, such as drafting a simple contract has a very well-defined goal. Interpreting an X-ray, there are machines that can do that better than human beings already. Or examining immigration documents, such as here at the airport. All they're doing is looking, is that you? Yup, stamp, and you're in. But if your job involves a wide variety of tasks, or requires the ability to solve problems in some kind of busy or a changing environment, or if it requires a human touch, then your job will be relatively safe. Now, such jobs might include demonstrations of skill, such as performing in a dance recital or in a sporting contest of some kind. We're not going to automate that. They might involve flexible problem solving. So, for example, nurses. Do we have any nurses in the room? None. Well, their jobs are safe. They're off working while the rest of us are here. Okay. Things like elder care, taking care of the elderly. Those are jobs that are going to be very, very hard to automate. There are other jobs that involve expressing empathy or trust or making a personal connection with other people, like consultative sales, for example. So here's the kind of thing you're not going to see. Nobody really wants to tell their troubles at the end of the day to an electronic bartender. And what fun is it going to be to listen to a robot play Chopin on the violin? Not much fun. Now, you might have seen a lot of the scary reports in the press that 50% or more of today's jobs are going to fall to automation in the next several decades. Now, this is a very odd statement because it's likely to be correct, but it's really quite misleading. And let me explain why. If you go back and look at what people did 25 or 50 years ago, you might be surprised to find that a very large percentage of the jobs that people did not back then no longer exist. And I'm talking about jobs that, at least in the US, they employed millions and millions of people. For example, just about every manager or executive used to have someone to answer their phones. They used to type their documents. There were typists. That used to be a job, believe it or not. To schedule your appointments. You used to go tell somebody to go schedule you an appointment. Now, in the US, no more. It's everybody for themselves. Or consider telephone switchboard operators. At its peak in the United States, there were well over 1 million people who did nothing but say, "Number, please," and work on these plug boards. And I thought this was a typo when I looked it up, but there are only 10,000 of them left in the United States. So while existing jobs are being changed or they're being eliminated, new jobs are being created. A few years ago, we didn't have online community managers. We didn't have social media PR people, bloggers and search engineers. We didn't used to have those things. And many of the jobs of the future also just don't exist today. So we'll have these new jobs as well. Well, what is this going to mean? Well, surely fewer workers are needed. But we've got a little bit of a paradox. On the one hand, automation allows us to do more work with fewer workers. So clearly it puts people out of work. And yet, historically, after each wave of automation, the number of jobs has increased. So what is going on? This is because technological progress raises productivity, and that increases output and reduces cost. So another way to look at this is that technological progress, on average, makes us much wealthier. And what that does, consumers have more money to spend, and they pay less for the goods and services. So what they do is they buy more stuff, and they do more things. And that is what creates the new jobs, and that's what increases the employment. Now, all of this is good news, except for one problem. As I've pointed out, the new jobs are actually quite different than the old jobs. So the displaced workers often lack the skills that are necessary to perform the new kinds of created work that's created. And this is what the economists call structural or technological unemployment. You know, the coal workers displaced from this mine aren't likely to have the skills to pilot the automated mining machines. And now, as long as these effects are gradual, the labor market can adapt very gracefully. But if the changes are very rapid or they're abrupt, that's when we have a problem. And lots of people may be thrown out of work without the skills that they're going to need. So the new technologies are going to make it possible to automate a wide variety of tasks that currently can be done by humans. And by historical standards, most people, including me, think this is going to happen relatively quickly. Now, what are we going to do about it? Well, one suggestion that I talk about in my book is that people should be able to borrow money against their future earnings stream as collateral for the work that they do. Now, today in the US, vocational training is really messed up, and I'm using polite language. Mainly because the government pays people for student loans. They give you money. Here, I think they pay for your education, not in the US. You borrow the money from the government, and then you're on the hook to pay it back, whether or not your skills prove to be valuable. So we're handing out money to people to learn things that just aren't going to help them get the skills necessarily that they need in the marketplace, because they're not experts on that. If you can't get a job in the US, it's too bad. You still owe all that money back, and you have to pay it back. You know, what we need to do is to create new kinds of financial instruments that tie the deployment of the capital to the return on the investment, just as people do with home mortgages. And that will make financing students and their retraining so much easier, because the workers will be able to have the money that they need in order to pay back the loans that they take. But more importantly, it will make it more attractive for private institutions, banks, and people who lend money to be able to provide that money to people who want to go back to school, instead of them having to borrow from the government. And the people who loan them the money are only going to do that for things that they have demonstrated will pay back in the future through increased value of the skills that they have. Okay, another change we need to make is right now, we tend to only invest in education for when people are young, like these people in the front row. But we're going to have to change that so it becomes perfectly normal for you to be able to stop work and go back to school for a few months or for a year to learn new skills and refresh your skills throughout your entire working career. I've scared them off already. Now, there's a similar story when it comes to wealth. You know, it's true that automation makes society richer, but there are very serious questions about just whose pockets are going to be increased, filled by that increased wealth. And that's a major problem. Capitalism is a great source of wealth, but it can also increase the differences between the rich and the poor. And that's a problem that can very much destabilize society. And we're seeing examples of this around the world today. You know, the current political situation in the United States actually illustrates this. Donald Trump, I can't even bear to say his name, a man had no political experience and was completely unqualified, became president of the United States. And he was elected mainly because of the discontent of an anger of Americans who felt that they were not participating in the new economic growth and the opportunities, which were all going to the wealthy people. Hopefully you're smarter than that here in Italy. Now, some people have the mistaken impression that the capitalism and the free market is going to take care of everything. You know, if only we can get the government out of the way. But I'm here to tell you that our economy is hardly an example of unfettered capitalism. The fact is that there are all sorts of rules and policies that drive where the capital can go, how it's deployed, and unfortunately, who benefits from it and who gets the returns. So the problem is that our economic and regulatory policies have been decoupled from our social goals. So we have to fix that. But the question is, how do we do it? I have some good news. The economy isn't static. In fact, looking at the US, and I'm sure it's the same here in the European Union, the actual amount of wealth in society has doubled every 40 years, reliably, for over 200 years, since the start of the Industrial Revolution in the 1700s. So what this means is that 40 years from now, when these kids in the front are the ages of the people on the back, most likely there will be literally twice as much wealth to go around. So the challenge for us is to implement policies that are going to encourage that wealth to be more broadly distributed across all of society. We don't have to steal from the rich and give to the poor. We just need to provide incentives for entrepreneurs and businesses to find ways to benefit an ever larger swaths of society. And we can do that. I don't have time here to go into a lot of detail, but I'm going to plug my book. In my book, I talk about the kinds of policies which will have the effect of benefiting wider swaths of society without disadvantaging those people who are becoming wealthy. So let me sum up. I believe that the future will be very bright because of artificial intelligence. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that its impact on society may be as great as the invention of the wheel. The wheel revolutionized transportation, and that's only one of the areas that will be revolutionized by artificial intelligence. But we need to think of AI not like you see in the movies. It's not some kind of magic that makes machines more intelligent. Instead, we need to think of it as a powerful collection of automation tools with the potential to transform our work, our livelihoods, and also to vastly increase our wealth. As I've explained, this doesn't mean there won't be any jobs, but it does mean that the workers who are displaced by the AI technology may not have the skills that are needed to do those new jobs. So it will be a good idea to provide education not just for the young, but for all workers throughout their working life. And we also need to ensure that the new wealth that we create is more fairly distributed across society. And we have to find new and better ways to ensure that our economy doesn't just motor on without us while throwing more and more people overboard. Our technology and our economy should serve us, not the other way around. So thank you very much.